Hi artists, welcome to another art lesson at home with Mrs. Miller. Today I'm going to be doing my final recycled art lesson in honor of Earth Day 2020. This is one of my favorite recycled art lessons by far. It's a great introduction to weaving for our younger artists, those primary grades. It's a really good challenge for their fine motor skills, but it can also be expanded for our older artists as well. For this lesson today, you are going to need to locate some plastic bags somewhere in your house. I have a few of them floating around, and we are going to be weaving them together to make a beautiful wall hanging. Today we're going to be creating these lovely wall hanging weavings made out of recycled plastic bags. All you'll need for this lesson is a rectangle of cardboard. Pick something that you can easily cut at the end, as well as some string. You can use yarn, scissors, and of course we're going to need lots of plastic bags. I used different colors, so I tried to find some different color variation and ended up using about 4 or 5. The first step will be cutting some notches into your makeshift cardboard loom. You're going to take your scissors, and I cut about 1/2 inch up. I would recommend doing an even number of notches. If you have a younger artist, do less notches. If you have an older artist that wants a little bit more of a challenge, you can do more and have a little bit tighter of a weave. Then you're going to cut some strings that go about 3 inches beyond each side of the cardboard. And you're going to take those strings and actually slide them so they fit snugly into each notch, and then stretch them across and slide them into the opposite notch. Do that for all of the notches that you created. Then to secure those strings on the back, all I'm going to do is take a little piece of blue tape or scotch tape and lay that down so that those stay in place while we're weaving. To make the weaving a little bit easier, you can slide 2 pencils on either side, kind of snug them up to those notches. It almost looks like a musical instrument. You're making those strings tighter and lifting them off the cardboard so our fingers and the plastic bag can move freely in between each string. Now, instead of yarn for this weaving, we're going to be using plastic bags. And we still have to make something long and skinny that we can actually weave in and out of those strings. So what I'm doing here is cutting off the top of a plastic bag, cutting off those handles, and then cutting it open so that it becomes a long rectangle of plastic. With my scissors, I'm going to start cutting some strips. They can be 1 inch to 2 inches. The skinnier the strip, the easier it'll be to weave them in and out in between the string. If you have bags like this, I unfortunately have a couple of these bags. They're green veggie bags that have been ripped into. You can still use them. I'm going to cut that open so I have a long rectangle of plastic, and then I'm going to do about 2 inch wide strips. and that'll create a lovely green color in my weaving. When you have some strips and you're ready to get started, you will begin on one side with a piece of plastic and you're going to go over, under, over, under. And then once you get to the other side, you want to pull it through, but leave about 3-inch tail, little 3-inch tail on the end. We'll be able to tuck that back in or clip it off after we finish the weaving. And then this is the big trick, is you're going to go back through. This time you're going to do the opposite string. So on that first layer, if you went over, then on the second run through, you're going to go under. So watch again, I'm going to go under, over, under, making sure I'm doing the opposite that I did above. I'm going to tighten it, and as I weave, I'm going to push that plastic up so it gets nice and tight. Here's another color I'm starting. Leaving a little 3-inch tail. I'm going to go back the other direction. This time I'm going under, over, under. Now there's a couple ways you can do this. You can tuck the end of your piece of plastic into the weaving and just start a new piece, or you can actually tie a knot, which I'll show you in just a moment. And you can make your pieces longer and longer if you tie knots, and then you just have to weave those knots into your piece. When I tie a knot, I've just been tying an overhand. Little granny knot there. Make sure it's fairly tight and won't slip. And then go back to your weaving. When you pull that knot through, sometimes it'll need a little extra help. Once you think you're finished with your piece, then you're going to flip it over, take off those pieces of tape, pop out the strings from their notches, and then you're going to tie those strings together. Take the first two. This is why I said it was good to have an even number. I did not do an even number in this one. Tie them together using a granny knot, and then move on to the next two strings. So we're going to move on to 3 and 4, 5 and 6, etc. Make sure to do that to both sides. And then once you've tied it off, you're finished with your weaving. Now, if you'd like to make this into a wall hanging, you can use an extra piece of string, tie it on to the end of your weaving, and then slowly wrap that string around. I got a little piece of driftwood. You can wrap it around a little piece of driftwood or a dowel. Run it through the weaving every time you come back to it. So here I'm going to put it in through a little loop in the plastic. Pull it through. It's just like sewing, but essentially we're sewing a piece of wood onto the top. If you want to add some tassels at the bottom, what I did was took some long skinny pieces of plastic, I folded them in half so I got a little loop at the end, and then I'm going to push that loop through the bottom layer of my weaving and pull the tails through. And tighten gently. You don't want to pull your weaving too hard. You can use a pair of scissors and trim these up. And you can take those same pair of scissors and trim up the sides. If there's any loose tails that you want to trim off, you could do that now. And there you have a beautiful plastic bag woven wall hanging. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining me for another art lesson at home with Mrs. Miller. Haynes artists, don't forget, this week is your last chance to submit any recycled artwork to our local Haynes Library Recycled Art Competition. If you do have any artwork that you want to submit, all you have to do is send it to education@hayneslibrary.org. And this competition is for anyone that is 18 and under, so all of my art students, you can submit a piece of artwork. And if you have a beautiful piece that you've created, we'd love to see it. Remember that all submissions need to be turned in by May 1st, that's this Friday, at 4 p.m. Thank you, artists, for tuning in. Don't forget to share with your family and friends, and have a wonderful week. Say bye, buddy. No biting. Okay. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in. Oh. Good boy, Budster. There we go. Thank you, artists, for tuning in. Don't forget to share with your family and friends, and have a wonderful week. Say bye, buddy.